My name's Jeff Angers. I'm the president of the Center for Coastal Conservation and a member of the board of the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. I believe that one man can make a difference. In any pursuit, one man or woman can make a difference. And over the last 3.5 years, I think all of us in Louisiana have seen one man making a difference in the spirit of Louisiana. Bobby Jindal decided long ago that he was going to be focused on raising a family that believed in the spirit of Louisiana and believed in participating in the outdoors in Louisiana. Bobby and I have spoken about it in the duck blind. We've spoken about it on the boat. He's a pretty good fisherman too. And I want to add, last summer, when all of the attention on the Gulf Coast was focused on all of the negative, Bobby decided that he wanted to get out on the water and focus on the positive. Focus on Louisiana recovering. Focus on the Gulf of Mexico recovering. And Bobby and several friends and I got on the boat, and we had to run about 50 miles to get through some of the closed areas in order for us to get to fishable water. But I can tell you, once we got to fishable water, we tore up the fish, just like he did in the just like he's done in the duck blind before. You know, Bobby was one of the initial members of the Governor's Sportsman's Caucus, which gathers together sportsman-friendly governors from all the states, and now there are 34 members of the Governor's Sportsman's Caucus that share ideas to encourage recreational fishing and hunting between the states. And we have a whole lot to be thankful for because, as I said at the outset, one man can make a difference. We are joined today by a couple other men who have made a difference in their space. Many of you know Chris Cox, the head of the National Rifle Association's Institute for Legislative Action. He, too, is a man who has made a difference in the defense of our Second Amendment rights. Let's give a big hand to Chris Cox. But I have the distinct honor today of introducing the third man, the man who indeed has made a difference, Willy Robertson, the duck commander. Those of us who duck hunt know that it is a passion that we pass down from fathers to sons, from parents to children, and it is a sport that is so important to those of us in the sportsman's paradise. Willie has done more to promote duck hunting than most anyone I think I've ever met. And I'd like us to all give a warm welcome to Willy Robertson, the duck commander.
It's great to be here driving down from West Monroe. I'm just glad I made it through security looking like I do. My dad sends his regards. I couldn't get him off the, couldn't get him out of the flooded timber. You know, till season's fixing to crank up. And we got in the truck this morning. My wife said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm heading down to Baton Rouge. The NRA and the governor's meeting at Cabela's. I feel like I should be there." I knew something was going to be going on. I just want to thank these two guys for all that they've done, especially the governor, to continue to fight for the rights of the outdoorsmen here in Louisiana. I mean, that's how we make our livings, and I know all you guys and gals out there who love to hunt and fish and appreciate the values that he shares. And also the NRA, you know, when I first started hanging out with these guys, I didn't realize how much they did up there to protect the rights, not just guns, I mean, when it comes to hunting rights. So it's an honor for him to come down and be here in our home state, and I'm glad to introduce him. Chris Cox.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming out today. And it's great for me to get out of Washington, D.C., but it's even better when I get to come to Louisiana see some real people, see some old friends. The Aronson family from Lipsy's are here today, and my friend Willy Robertson, a lot of NRA members I see here today, and I appreciate it. But I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you because I know you love your country. But if you're like me, you're scared. You're scared that the freedoms that make this country the greatest in the history of the planet are being lost. You're scared because you want to make sure that they're there for our kids and grandkids, and a lot of us are afraid that that's not going to happen. Because when you think about it, at the end of the day, they're really just words on a piece of really old parchment paper about this thin if there's not people who are willing to stand up and fight for them. Sadly, many of our politicians don't. Some of them just stick their finger in the air and see how the political winds are blowing. Some of them talk a big game during the elections, but then they rarely fulfill their promises. And some of them think that it's the government's freedom and not the people's. Well, if our founding fathers wanted the government to have the power, they would have stayed with King George. But they didn't. They founded our country not on a religion, not on a race, and not on a crown, but on a set of God-given, inalienable rights, including the right to keep and bear arms. The people of this great state know these truths to be self-evident, and so does your governor. When Bobby Jindal put his hand on a Bible and swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States, he didn't pick and choose which freedoms to uphold. He fights for all of them. And I can tell you with certainty, when it comes to the Second Amendment, no governor in the last 4 years has done more to protect our freedoms than Bobby Jindal. You know, I get to spend a lot of time with people who support the Second Amendment, from presidents to Hollywood celebrities to country music stars and professional athletes, and it's great to have the support of high-profile people. But Bobby Jindal's a different kind of supporter because he truly is a champion when it comes to protecting our rights. And to tell you what I mean, I want to go back for a moment to a dark period in not only Louisiana's history, but America's history. And I want to talk for a moment about Hurricane Katrina. The national news media largely ignored the first door-to-door confiscation of firearms in American history. It didn't happen in New York City. It didn't happen in San Francisco. No, it happened in New Orleans. During a time of total chaos, when the Second Amendment was the only security that many folks had, the mayor and the chief gave the order to seize all guns, including from law-abiding people. At the time, Bobby Jindal was a member of Congress, and after fighting to help save Louisiana, he turned his attention back to what happened in New Orleans and vowed to never let it happen again. At the time, Bobby reminded Americans that disasters can happen anywhere, from hurricanes in the Gulf to tornadoes in the Midwest to man-made disasters in New York City. And regardless of where it happens, Americans have a God-given fundamental right to defend themselves and their families. So he wrote a bill to guarantee what happened in New Orleans would never happen again anywhere in America. Now, don't forget this was in Congress, where they can't seem to agree on whether it's night or day. But he reached out to Republicans, and he reached out to Democrats, and they followed him. He built an overwhelming bipartisan majority and got that bill passed. And he didn't stop fighting until his bill, the Disaster Recovery Personal Protection Act, was signed into law. That effort took guts, and it took leadership. Thankfully, your governor has a surplus of both. It was for his leadership and perseverance that the National Rifle Association awarded Bobby with the Harlan B. Carter Award, which is our highest award of accomplishment. Governor, on behalf of every gun owner in this state and in this country, thank you for what you did. As your governor, Bobby's continued to be a champion for the Second Amendment. Some politicians said that you don't have a right to defend yourself in your own home and that you have a duty to retreat from a criminal attack. Bobby said you have that backwards, so he signed the Castle Doctrine into law. But your right to defend yourself doesn't stop at your doorstep, which is why Bobby Jindal supports the right to carry. And he's worked to improve the law here in Louisiana to remove arbitrary boundaries that leave honest people defenseless. He doesn't support self-defense because it's politically expedient. He supports self-defense because it saves lives. And that's the kind of courage, commitment, and leadership you have in your governor. You know, it's kind of fitting that we're in Cabela's today. I mean, this is a sportsman's paradise in the sportsman's paradise. But Bobby knows that it's a lot more than a cool slogan to put on a license plate. It's a reflection of your state's rich hunting heritage, which is why he not only believes it passionately, but defends it and promotes it with the same passion. In 2009, he signed a bill to improve the hunting experience for the disabled. And the next year, he signed the Louisiana Family Hunting Law to make it easier for parents and grandparents to take their kids and grandkids hunting. And as people are struggling, you have Governor Jindal to thank for the Second Amendment tax holiday he signed. For that weekend, you pay no sales tax to exercise your Second Amendment rights or to buy any of the things that you need for the field. And these days, every little bit helps. The truth is, I could go on and on today listing all the great things that your governor's done to promote freedom and protect freedom. But instead, I just want to say thank you to the people of Louisiana for electing him. America is a great country. Louisiana is a great state. And Bobby Jindal is a great governor. So on behalf of the 4 million members of the National Rifle Association of America, it's my privilege and my honor to be here today to deliver the NRA endorsement to Bobby Jindal for governor.
Thank you all very much. I want to thank Jeff, Willie, and Chris. Let's give these guys another great round of applause for the great job they've done today. It is such an honor to be here with you today. It is no surprise at all. When people ask me, Governor, where do you stand on the Second Amendment? I'm so proud to say I stand right beside the NRA to defend the rights of Americans and Louisianians. Chris, I'm proud to call you a friend. I'm proud to call myself a member of the NRA. You know, people in Washington have got it exactly backwards. That probably doesn't come as a big surprise to any of us who live down here in God's country, but they've got it exactly backwards. People in Washington seem to think that the bigger and the stronger the government gets, the more secure our rights are. And that's exactly wrong. And that is why they have grown this government. They have borrowed money they can't possibly pay back to continue to try to get more and more involved in our lives. They want to run our health care system. They want to run the car companies. They want to run the banks. They want to tell us what to do, when to do, and how to run our lives. Well, we here in Louisiana understand this. A larger government doesn't secure our freedoms. A larger government actually threatens our freedoms. And as Chris has just told you, perhaps the most stark example of that is what happened in our state. In this great state, in this great country, we truly are sportsman's paradise. But you go back 6 years ago. 6 years ago when Hurricane Katrina and then Rita came through our state. Let's remember what it was like. That when the federal levees broke, when the water started filling the city, when all of a sudden people were without power, not just for days, but for weeks. When people all of a sudden were stranded, and unfortunately the police couldn't be on every block, every hour of every day. National TV screens were filled with the images of looters, criminals, and others going wild. There were stories about attacks and thefts and violent crimes happening all over this great city and this great state. Then more than ever before, we, the people of Louisiana, needed the ability to protect ourselves, to protect our homes, our property, and our lives. And who would have thought that in Louisiana, of all places, this was the first place in America, our very own government, agents of our very own government, literally went door to door for the first time in America's history to take away guns from law-abiding citizens. People had always said it would never happen. People always said it could never happen. And certainly we never imagined it would happen right here in Louisiana in sportsman's paradise. Now, God forbid, we never want to go through another hurricane. We never want to go through another disaster again. But I don't know about you, but if we go through a disaster, if there is no power, if the police can't be there on every block of every hour of every day, I don't know about you, but as President Reagan so famously said, I want that criminal to think twice before he tries to break into my house. I want that looter to think twice before he comes onto my property. I want those thugs to think twice before they target my wife and my children. And thanks to the hard work of the NRA and our Second Amendment rights, they will have to think twice before they try to make victims of all of us. And one of the reasons I authored the bill, and one of the reasons I fought so hard to pass this bill in Congress on a bipartisan basis, to secure our rights, was to make sure that first, it never happens again in the great state of Louisiana, in our great country, but also to send a message that what happened 6 years ago after Katrina was unacceptable. Chris said something very important. We do have a fundamental right. It is enshrined in the Second Amendment. Now, maybe you're like me, maybe you're a hunter and you enjoy going out there, maybe you're a duck hunter, maybe you're a deer hunter, and it is important to you that you have that right. Or maybe you're a collector and you like to buy and collect guns, and it's important for you to have that right. Or maybe you're just interested in personal security, and you want to make sure you can protect yourself, defend your property and your family, and you're interested in this right. Whatever your motivation, whatever your reason, it is so important that we all understand this is an individual right, granted to us not by some large government in Washington, D.C. Our founding fathers got it right. They wrote down that they were recognizing the inalienable rights granted to us by God, by our Creator. These aren't rights simply given to us by the politicians. And sometimes they forget that in Washington, D.C. They forget they work for us, not the other way around. And so we had to pass this bill to remind folks, never again will this happen in Louisiana, never again will this happen in America. Our constitutional rights, our fundamental Second Amendment rights, our right to bear arms, whether for recreational purposes, for self-defense, or purely for our own purposes, shall never again be violated by our own government. Now, I could talk about a lot of bills we've passed and a lot of things we've done. But the most important thing I want to share with you today is I stand before you as a governor. I stand before you as a husband, as a father of 3 young children. And as long as I'm your governor, we're going to do everything we can to protect your rights, enshrined in the Constitution granted to us by our Creator, to bear those arms, to have those guns, to make sure that no government, no bureaucrat thinks they can take away our rights. Now, we introduced 3 great men. I want to introduce to you one very special woman before I conclude my remarks. I've brought along our First Lady. I'm going to ask Priya to come up here. I want you to give a great round of applause. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about her rights is I am a husband. And I'm a father of 3 great kids, 9, 7, and 5. And those kids are great. They've already been out there catching fish, and they're at that age where we're looking forward to taking them out to hunt and to learn how to do those things for themselves. But I think I'll speak for many in this audience when I say, and many in this group when I say, I can't be there 24/7 with my wife and my kids. And I want to make sure that every one of our families has that security, has that confidence, has that ability to protect themselves. So I stand before you today not only as a governor, but as a husband and as a father of 3 great young children. And the same rights our fathers, our mothers gave to us, I want to pass along to our children and grandchildren. So go home and remember to teach your children and your grandchildren the importance of securing our God-given rights. Let's never take those rights for granted. God bless you, and thank y'all for coming out today. Thrilled to have the NRA's endorsement. Obviously, I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. Authored a bill when I was in Congress to make sure that government officials don't go door to door taking away weapons from law-abiding citizens. Proud to have their endorsement as I seek another 4 years as governor. Love to have their endorsement. Was honored to have Jeff here as well, and Willy and the others. Reality is it's really up to the voters of Louisiana, so I'm proud to have the NRA standing with me. I ended my remarks by asking the voters now to go out and vote on October 22nd, because polls are great, endorsements are great, fundraising is great, but it's really up to the voters. We've made a lot of progress in 4 years, but we've got a lot more work to do to create even more jobs for our kids. I'm especially honored to have the NRA's endorsement because they're an organization that has stood up for our Second Amendment rights. They understand those rights are God-given, God-granted rights. Our founding fathers identified them as inalienable rights. These weren't rights randomly given to us by government bureaucrats. They can't be taken away by government bureaucrats. These are inalienable rights guaranteed, not granted, but guaranteed by the Constitution.